This is BBC Two in the northwest. Now Close Up North goes underground in Liverpool to reveal a long-lost network of tunnels and the people who've uncovered them.
Deep beneath the streets of Liverpool's Edge Hill district lies a labyrinth of tunnels and passages that twist and turn for more than 2 miles. For over 150 years, this underground world has remained hidden, shrouded in secrecy and part of local folklore. Now at last, the tunnels are being reopened and their secrets revealed. Why? Why are the tunnels here? The answer to that is a complex one, and it combines aspects of business, philanthropy, and a fascination with life underground. One man lies behind all of this, and behind him lies a love story and a broken heart. Joseph Williamson was born in Warrington in March 1769. His family were poor, and the young Joseph was soon working to support them. When he was just 11 years old, he travelled to Liverpool in search of work. Williamson managed to find a job with Liverpool tobacco merchant Richard Tate, who owned a factory on Wolstenholme Square. He proved a hard-working employee and was eager to learn. Tate admired the young apprentice, and Williamson gradually advanced his way up through the company. By 1802, Williamson had completed his rise from rags to riches when he fell in love and married Tate's daughter, Elizabeth. Both her portrait and that of Williamson are in the collection of the Walker Art Gallery in Liverpool. Within a year of the wedding, Williamson took over the business from his brother-in-law, Thomas Tate. Now a wealthy man, he built an impressive mansion on Mason Street in Edge Hill. But the couple never had children, and with little else to spend his money on, the increasingly eccentric Williamson invested his fortune in property, buying much of the surrounding land. By the time he retired in 1818, he had amassed a small fortune. It was with this money he set about building his underground kingdom, a labyrinth of tunnels cut into the sandstone of Edge Hill, defying all reason and logic, and earning him the title, the Mole of Edge Hill. I went to try and find out why Williamson built the tunnels, and to learn more about the plans to open them up to the public.
As you can see, as you're walking here,
Gabriel Muse is one of a number of local people who've been pushing to unearth Williamson's subterranean world.
Well, it was when I was a kid, just after the war. I used to come into the railway station, Crown Street Railway Station, which is over the road. And as I say, in them days, coal was very scarce. And what I used to do after school, I used to come up and go into the railway stations with a little army bag and pick, as the trains come shunting in, pieces of coal used to fall off the wagons, and I'd fill my bag up and take it home for the, we'd have a coal fire for the weekend and a hot bath. Now, while I was in these tunnels, sometimes the railwaymen, used to see me. They were shouting at me for my own safety, one thing and another. But one thing I always remembered what they used to shout at me was, "Get out of there, or the mad mole of Edge Hill will get you." Because naturally, I used to run like the clappers, for daylight, in the opposite direction with my little bag of coal.
For the last 6 years, Gabriel and other local volunteers have been painstakingly excavating the tunnels in conditions not too dissimilar to those experienced by the original workers in Williamson's day. It has proved a huge task for the Joseph Williamson Society, as the tunnels were built without any logical sequence.
There were no plans, that they're not in any way coordinated, they're just all over the place. There's actually a brick-lined tunnel further on. It's still, like the rest of them, full of rubble, but that runs off, amazingly enough, parallel to this one, and under Mason Street. At the moment we're under the flats, and that one continues right under the flats and under the roadway.
And how about the one on the other side?
The one on the other side is actually a dead end. We obviously got bored with that one, or perhaps it was one that was being dug towards the end of his life. It actually goes a few feet in, turns a corner, and comes to a dead end, but it's perfectly finished on the bits that he actually did dig.
Over the years, tons of rubble and debris have been poured into the tunnels by illegal fly tippers. The rubbish has almost filled the tunnels, making the task of unearthing them all the more difficult.
There's a whole mix of stuff, again, like the rest of the tunnel. Some of it near the top is building rubble. It's demolition rubble, bricks and slates and things. Below that, there's several feet of ash and clinker, whether that's come from a local factory or from the houses in the area, we're not sure. But there's a whole mix of stuff that's been thrown in. And this was the problem when the building work started up above, that some of that was loosened and blocked this entrance.
I see.
But we've now taken out the loose material, and the tunnel itself behind it is in very good condition.
Above ground, it's hard to envisage the extent of the tunnels. Their main entrance is on the former site of the Lord Mayor's stable yard on Smithdown Lane. The so-called double tunnel cuts into the hillside beneath Mason Street before branching off into a labyrinth of tunnels cut through the sandstone. The tunnels run deep beneath the ground, interweaving and doubling back on one another. There are access points to the network all over Edge Hill, including Williamson's mansion on Mason Street. There are telltale signs of what lies below. Subsidence caused by the tunnels is a regular occurrence. But of Williamson's house on Mason Street itself, there is little left today. In later years, the site was taken over by the army, who used it as a training camp and officers' mess. By the 1980s, it had fallen into disuse, and now, after years of neglect, all that remains of the once grand building is this facade. Here we can get access to even more of the tunnels and to one of Williamson's most amazing constructions, an underground banqueting hall.
It's hard to believe that this was the ground floor of Williamson's house on Mason Street, but what we're going to do now, we're going to take a look below into the banqueting hall.
This bizarre tunnel opens out into the most impressive underground structure, the banqueting hall.
Well, it's alleged that he invited all the gentry to an evening meal. He took them into a back room first, and in that back room, all there was a bare table with dry bread and beans and bacon, you know, laid out as the meal. And he sat down to it and asked them to sit down with him. and they were a little bit of aghast at it, you know, how simple the meal was. And as they walked out, he actually, when he turned round, a few people that was prepared to sit down and have the meal with him, he said, "Now, gentlemen," he said, "leave that meal where it is." He said, "I'm going to take you for a meal what is fit for a king." And then he told them to get up and follow him, and he took them down into this banquet, what is known as the banqueting hall.
We're about 16 metres below the surface level at the moment, but the team are actually hoping that once they've excavated all of this area and we get down to the original floor, it'll be about 30 metres below surface level.
Williamson had become a man obsessed. He spent more time beneath the ground than he did on the surface. When Elizabeth died in 1822, aged 56, the heartbroken Williamson retreated to his underground network.
After his wife died, he went as a bit of a recluse, and he got his men to dig this room out for a purpose. He went like a bit of a recluse, and he stayed down here until the day he died. He was actually found down here by his housekeeper in his little rocking chair with his clay pipe on his knees. And as you can see, there's the fireplace there. There's the hole there, is the flue where the smoke went up to the surface. You can actually see the iron rings where he used to hang, the open pots. He liked a lot of wine, and he used to give his men wine to drink after a hard day's work. And he used to store his little barrels of wine down here.
Williamson died here, underground, on the 1st of May, 1840. He was 71. He is buried next to his wife in the Tate family crypt at St. Thomas's Church at the bottom of Paradise Street. The church was demolished around 1900. The site is now used as a car park. His grave is unmarked. There is no monument.
Well, the graveyard was divided into two in 1886 when the city decided it wanted to extend Paradise Street, and they had an agreement with the church. All the graves in the other half were exhumed and removed and the ground deconsecrated. In this half, they weren't. They were left, and it was supposed to be a garden forevermore with the graves in it. The church itself stayed in existence for another 20 years or more, until 1910, when it was pulled down because the congregation got too small. And that's the story of what actually happened in the graveyard. So this is still consecrated ground, and the bodies have never been exhumed on here. They were not disturbed. Well, it's sad that there isn't a gravestone and there isn't a marker. That would be a extra boon if that had happened, but it hasn't. However, I think I would be a lot more upset if he had been in the other half of this graveyard that was deconsecrated and removed. So at least he is here. So I think as Friends of Williamson Tunnels, we're pleased that there is somewhere down here. And it's up to us now to put a marker here in some way.
So what is the legacy of Joseph Williamson? 10 years before Williamson's death, George Stephenson began constructing the first commercial railway here in Liverpool. And in doing so, he had to dig a tunnel under Edge Hill directly into the city. Totally unaware of Williamson's excavations, Stephenson's men set to work.
To get from Edge Hill to where Lime Street is today, the line of the tunnel that had to come through had to come under Williamson's property. So what he tells his men, when he sees where the line has got to come and it's coming under his property, he tells his men to put a dog's leg in one of the tunnels and starts heading for Stephenson's men. So eventually, the day comes where Stephenson's man bang with the pick and it goes right through the face. So he shouts to his mates, "Hey, something's gone wrong here, the pick's gone right through." So his mates just shout to him, "Pull it out." So as he pulls it out, a little piece of rock falls down. Now, leaves a little hole. Now, what happens then? Williamson's men are on the other side, dead quiet. Now, they can actually hear the conversation going on with Stephenson's men. Now, as he just goes to have a look through the hole, one of Williamson's men pops his head up at the same time. So it's down tools, everyone running like hell for daylight. So what happens is they get out at Edge Hill Station and the boss decides to ask the men, what's happened? Has there been an accident? Has anybody been injured and all that business? So they turn around, everybody is accounted for. And he says, "No, there's nobody been injured, but all okay and everything." So the boss tells them, he says, "Well, you better get back down there. We've got a railway to build." And the men just saying outside, there's no way we're going back down there, mate. We've just met the devil down there. And he definitely won't go down. You know, they're all petrified. So what happens, the yard foreman tells a messenger to go and get Stevenson to bring him back, because Stevenson's back up the line somewhere towards Rain Hill on that. So he says, right, well, a couple of you take me down, let me see it. And none of them will go down. So what he's got to do, he's got to look around, tells the yard foreman to go and get somebody who doesn't know what's happened, a couple of hard cases, and gives them a couple of extra coppers, you know, to take him down. So as they're coming down into the tunnel, Williamson is waiting there with his men. Williamson says to Stevenson, look, mate, he says, if you want men to build your railway, come into my underworld kingdom and see what my men can do. Now, when Stevens crossed over into Williamson's tunnels and he seen the skills, the archers and everything, he realised he had a ready-made skilled workforce there and then ready for him. So what he'd done from that day onwards, Stevenson employed all the workforce, Williamson's workforce, up at the railway age, and they finished off Lime Street Station.
The railway line runs through Edge Hill today, and if you look closely, it is still possible to see where Williamson's tunnels have been truncated by Stevenson's cutting. And it would seem highly likely the skills Williamson's men learnt whilst building his underground network would have been of immense use to Stevenson during the construction of Lime Street Station.
There's the original chisel marks. The men hacked out by hand.
Just why Williamson built the tunnels in the first place is a mystery. But one theory is he remembered his own poor beginnings and created work for men for no other purpose than to provide them with employment.
All we've ever known about this man is that he was the mad mole of Edge Hill. Now, as I was doing this research, I come to realise that the man wasn't mad. He just upset a couple of influential people and some local politicians. He was Liverpool's greatest benefactor ever to the unemployed of Liverpool. And I realised not only that by cleaning these back out again, I was recreating history. The difference between me and Williamson is Williamson was a millionaire and I'm unemployed.
But Williamson's story is as complex as his tunnels, and not everyone accepts the theory he employed men to build them for purely philanthropic reasons.
Where are you going to take me now, Frank?
Well, this is the Williamson Paddington site, which
I travelled up the road to the Paddington area to meet Frank Hodges from the Friends of the Williamson Tunnels. The charity was set up in 1996 by local people campaigning to preserve the network. The group has discovered Williamson's tunnels extend to the area from neighbouring Edge Hill.
OK, Rebecca, this going down to the first level now from where you can see where we actually broke through down the back there. And these are a lot of the things that we've uncovered while we've been working here. Mainly it's 19th and early 20th century rubbish, really. Although it's not rubbish to us, it's quite interesting and
There's some
valuable.
really interesting pieces. I mean, what's this one here?
That's what's known as a cod bottle, I think, because a gentleman named Cod invented it. And it was filled with lemonade, and it was filled in that position. The lemonade was pushed into it, and there's a little glass ollie in there, which fell onto a rubber seal, and the gas pressure held it sealed.
Wow. We don't see things like that now, do we?
No. And the kids used to smash the neck off, so you very rarely get them intact like this, because they used to like to play with the marbles inside. And apparently the gentleman Cod, his name is still with us today, because what was in it was known colloquially as Codswallop.
That's a nice bottle there. That's like a square bottle.
This is a more modern bottle, but you can see it's calibrated with doses on, so presumably it was a medicine bottle of some description, or something that had to be done in measured quantities, perhaps for the bakery.
Yeah, but maybe for upstairs.
Yeah. So
It's interesting.
Yeah. So do you want to come and have a look round the corner? We're going down to the second layer now. There's a very elegant arch here that we discovered when we first broke in.
Is there like 5 individual layers?
Yeah, very nice. Very nice brickwork. One of the features of these tunnels is that the brickwork is always admired, particularly by people who know their trade. And there was rubble up to here when we came down, and in fact we slithered down on our stomachs over the top of it into this next layer.
But you've excavated it all out?
Well, we've moved everything back so that people can get a better idea of what's here and they can move around a little more easily. We're not able to get all the rubbish shifted out yet, unfortunately.
Well, let's take a look.
Yes, okay, come on.
Yeah.
This is the second level, the back now that we're in. The whole thing is shaped like a letter H, really. 2 letter H's on top of each other, but this one is very, very deep.
So this is as far as you've got so far?
Yes, yes, there's a hole at the back there which we know goes down for 40-odd feet, but unfortunately it's surrounded by several thousand tons of ash from the bakery, so we're going to have to get all that lifted out, and then we hope, yeah, who knows where we would go from there.
What on earth possessed Williamson to build these tunnels?
Well, the accepted story is that they were purely functional when he first started in Mason Street, and he built these huge brick arches to support terraced gardens to fill in the land down to Smithdown Lane, so that there was a garden that was suitable for the property. And we think then perhaps he got a bit of a bee in his bonnet and set off into the hillside. There's another theory that's been put to us, and that is that his wife fell under the thrall of a preacher at a chapel in Hope Street in Liverpool, and this preacher forecast that the Holocaust was going to visit the city in September 1840, and that she persuaded Joseph to excavate all these holes in the ground so that they could provide shelter for the people of Liverpool and food to see them through until after the Holocaust. And the same person told us that Williamson had provided maps of his plans to rebuild the city after this had happened. And the chap who told us this story was quite funny, because he said it's interesting that had whoever made the prediction altered 1840 to 1940, he probably would have been exactly right, because of course that's when we had the dreadful Blitz in Liverpool.
Six months have passed since Gabriel first showed me the tunnels, and over the winter, work has progressed to reopen them. A heritage centre is being built at the entrance to the double tunnel on Smithdown Lane, and is due to open to the public in July.
Funding's come from a variety of sources, the majority of it from European funds, which have been accessed through several agencies in the area, the Granby-Toxteth Development Trust, Granby-Toxteth Partnership and the Granby-Toxteth SRB. As well as that, there's been private sector input from Seymour Properties, who were the site owners originally, and various companies. A lot of it has actually gone on clearing the tunnels out, and refurbishing the tunnels. There were lots of holes that had been knocked in them for rubble to be dumped down in the past. So there's a lot of money to clear the tunnels out and refurbish them, and refurbishing the building and making the main tunnel, the double tunnel, weatherproof with the glass screen.
This is going to be the dry exhibition space for any artefacts that we have, say leather or textiles, that need a more controlled environment. We can put objects down the tunnels, glass, pottery, pipes, things like that, that are not going to be damaged by the damp, but anything that we need to control the environment will have to be in this space. We can put a few exhibits in this area as well, but this is the general thoroughfare as we come past here into the cafe and as people are coming out of the tour. Obviously there's still builders in here at the moment, and this part hasn't been kitted out or anything, but you see the big barriers in the middle. This is where we're going to have a glass floor. The moment the glass isn't in, but the idea is that then you'll be able to see down into the basement. Now, underneath these old railway sleepers, these are actually fixed to the wall. This isn't the ground level of the tunnel underneath. And there's, at least as much below us now as there is above. It's not been dug out completely to the bottom yet. There's still a lot of fill in there. But even so, when you look down to the bottom, you can see how deep it is. So this is why we're having the glass floor on, so you'll be able to see down. And on the side walls, it's very difficult without the lighting. It will be lit, but you can actually see the remains of where there used to be another arch underneath this one. So this, although we call it the double tunnel, was actually a triple tunnel. But that arch was different from these. That one was actually made in stone. So these ones have come later. The original one has been built with the actual stone that's been quarried out from down below. But that's collapsed. It's a shame it's not there anymore. But we've got the sides of it where it was anchored into the wall, and some of the big stone blocks that have been pulled out are scattered around on the site at the moment.
Because of a lot of research that was done by people associated with the two societies.
It's hoped that when the Joseph Williamson Centre opens, it will create jobs and investment in the Edge Hill area.
Well, basically what we have down below here at the frontage of Smithdown Lane is the actual Heritage Centre itself, the big glass frontage building. And obviously that would be the showcase of what the tunnels is all about, the exhibition area and a whole range of other things that will make this project a sort of a showpiece so far as this local community is concerned. And that would attract people, and also attract people who will spend money. They'll buy books, they will visit the place, and a whole range of other things as well. And so that's investment coming into the local economy.
It's actually quite claustrophobic down here. This is a concrete walkway built by the contractors, linking the two main tunnels together. When the Visitors Centre is actually open to the public in July, you'll be able to walk all around here and get a real sense of what it was like to work here during Williamson's time. We may never know the true reason why Joseph Williamson created this fantastic labyrinth of tunnels here beneath Edge Hill. But there is little doubt that in doing so, he created jobs for thousands of unemployed workmen. And yet, more than 150 years later, there is no statue, no monument, and no recognition to Williamson's great achievements. Now, at last, with the opening of the Joseph Williamson Heritage Centre, his life will finally be commemorated here in Edge Hill.
Leise fliehen meine Lieder durch die Nacht zu dir. In den stillen Hainheren Liebchen, komm zu mir.